There are still people alive today who lived through the occupation. To today's youth, their stories often seem implausible. Could it really have been like that? The vast majority of these stories are quite credible. In fact, eyewitnesses occasionally withheld certain details, fearing that people wouldn't believe them and would think they were lying. As one woman once said, "If we were to tell everything we went through, the whole truth to the end, who would believe it?" Indeed, truth can sometimes be terrifying and horrible. We will try to stick only to reliable and verified stories. Impunity. So how did the Nazis behave after occupation Krasnodar? First thing, they moved into the best houses and apartments, evicting their owners to utility rooms and in fact turning them into their servants. All the vegetation around the private houses was destroyed, bushes and tall flowers, so that partisans couldn't hide. Various restrictions, strict regulations, and grievances for any reason or even without reason began to be applied to the population. Upon entering foreign territory, armed invaders free from significant restrictions feel superior to the unarmed population. This sense of dominance compels them to violate all moral human laws and engage in common rudeness and inhumane treatment toward the local inhabitants. Audacity. A semi-cultured average person, having endured humiliation and fear at home, once on foreign territory, may begin to feel like a master over the inhabitants of the occupied countries, an arbiter of fates. German soldiers and officers saw the property of the conquered peoples as their legitimate trophy. The lives and health of the owners of this property did not interest them at all. The main role in shaping these views was played, of course, by Nazi propaganda and directives from Berlin, which asserted the principle of total war. Nazi leaders openly informed their subordinates about the true nature of war. There are no moral or ethical constraints here, so anything that does not harm the Reich and brings Germany closer to victory is allowed. At the very beginning of the invasion of fascist Germany into the territory of Lithuania, there was a monstrous Jewish pogrom. The Jews were driven out of their homes, forced to undress, made to kneel, compelled to clean filth from the streets with their mouth, and were tormented in every possible way, after which they were killed in the most sadistic ways, beaten to death with sticks, shovels, crowbars, hammers, sledgehammers, and axes. In a word, the entire set of working tools was used. In 4 days, more than 4,000 residents of Kaunas were killed, and another 1,000 in the outskirts and surrounding town settlements. A similar situation happened in the city of Lviv. Since June 30th, with the arrival of the Germans in the city, raids on Jews began. They were driven from their homes, stripped, beaten, raped, humiliated in every possible way, and in the end killed. In the city of Lviv, 4,000 Jews were also killed in few days. From the memo of the German soldier: "You are a German. As befits a German, destroy everything alive that resists on your path. Always think of the sublime, of the pure, and you will win. Neither bullet nor bayonet will harm you. Tomorrow, the whole world will be kneeling before you." It is clear that after such instructions, German soldiers no longer had any moral restraints regarding the populations of the occupied countries. Unspeakable. Of course, there were quite a few cultured and well-mannered officers and soldiers among the Germans, but it was not they who set the tone in the German army. A significant part of the Germans indeed considered themselves a special nation, which was allowed everything in relation to other peoples. Therefore, they demanded complete submission and unconditional obedience from the inhabitants of the conquered lands. For example, in Vitebsk, the commandant ordered all girls aged 14 to 25 to report to his office, allegedly to work assignments. In fact, the fascists took several dozens of most attractive girls and sent them to fill German brothels. In Smolensk, after the opening of the brothel, the police and gendarmes grabbed the first girls they encountered on the street and forcibly dragged them into the brothel, pulling them by their hands and hair along the pavement if the girls resisted. In the village of Borodaivka, Dnipropetrovsk region, the fascists raped all the women and girls. 15-year-old Maria was stripped naked by the soldier and in this state was led through the street, being taken into houses where the German soldiers were staying. In their letters, the Nazis were not ashamed to describe to their relatives in France their depraved and cruel behavior toward the local population. From Lieutenant Gaffney's letter: "They turned out to be devils. We have to tie them up." In Brest, all the suspects were driven to the stadium during raids. They could be kept there for several days without food or water. In 2 nights, drunk officers took about 70 young women from the stadium who did not return. Here's Commandant's order of September 29, 1941. Residents are prohibited from going outside from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. by German time. Violators of the order may be shot. Entering the settlements, the German soldiers demanded food or warm clothes that they could take directly off a person while laughing and joking. Or on the contrary, they could beat anybody if they were in a bad mood. Officer Malaparty, in a letter to his brother in 1943, confessed, "I have seen such atrocities from my own compatriots that I cannot describe them to you in words. Rapes, murders of girls for nothing, old people, children, experiments in camps and work until death. Believe me, brother." Slave owner syndrome. Since the times of slave-owning states, campaigns and conquerors have always wanted to have cheap labor, preferably free, and also the opportunity to get their hands on the people's lands and resources. In the 20th century, German Nazism and Italian fascism openly aimed to revert humanity 2,000 years back to a system of slavery. The ultimate aim of any fascism is to seize what belongs to others and exploit forced labor. And the Nazis, in a few years, suppressed everyone in this unhealthy pursuit. A new order has come. Work assignments were organized for the benefit of the Reich. The Nazis destroyed collective farms, but only to transfer their lands to the land funds of the Third Reich. The former collective farmers had to collectively cultivate now German lands, just like slaves on the plantation of ancient Rome or European colonies. The Germans established a joint responsibility for the standards that peasants were obligated to meet. The townspeople had to work in the remaining industries or go to Germany to work for the benefit of the Reich. First, the Nazi authorities would collect the established tax from people. Then the soldiers from the advancing German units would take everything from them. And then, if someone starts to protest, the executioner will come, humiliate, kill, rob what is left, and burn the village. The inhabitants of the occupied countries not only found themselves redundant in their own lands, but they were also at risk of being robbed, bullied, and humiliated by the Nazis at any time. However, the Nazi miscalculated. The peoples did not want to go into the bondage of slavery and lawlessness without protest. They fought back.